Welcome to a conversation with a community leader. I'm Cary, Bozeman, and this program is sponsored by Leadership Kitsap. And my guest today is a real community leader, Erin Leedham. I got it.
Yeah.
Who is the director title?
General manager.
General manager of the Kitsap Mall. And there's no one that's going to look at this program or watch it that hasn't been in the Kitsap Mall sometime in their life, right? So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's the center of the retail business in Kitsap County and has been since the mid-'80s, as I understand. So good to have you with me.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Cary.
You're definitely a community leader and you're making a difference in this community, so it's appropriate that you be here. Why don't we start off by just telling us a little bit about yourself, where are you from, and how'd you get in the retail business?
I actually am a New England girl. I grew up on the East Coast.
Where were you born?
I was born in New Jersey. I lived in Maryland, a couple times in Massachusetts, went to college in upstate Maine, shoveled a lot of snow growing up.
Yeah.
And then when I graduated, decided to head to California.
My
dad was an engineer, so it was wherever they moved him, we moved. My mom said we moved every 3 years whether we needed to or not. So yes. So I decided to go to sunny California after that.
Yeah.
And
do you have brothers and sisters?
I do. I had 4 brothers and 3 brothers and 1 sister. So.
And where do they live? Around here?
A couple in Massachusetts. No, I'm the only West Coast person.
Oh, you're the only West Coast person?
Yeah, I'm the only one that came this far.
So what brought you to California?
Son. Again, 4 years in Orono, Maine. It was time to go do something different. And California seemed like a great place to go. So
Whereabouts in California?
I went to Palo Alto. Friends of mine that were living, who had lived across the street from us were there. So I went to Palo Alto.
We have a daughter that just graduated from Stanford in graduate school. She's a little older. But we were just down in Palo Alto.
Yeah, it's a beautiful place.
It's a beautiful place. Yeah, it is. So what did you do in California?
I got into real estate kind of sideways. I have a bachelor's in nutrition and decided that wasn't the field for me and started doing bookkeeping. And from bookkeeping went into property management. And from there I just kind of kept expanding
Where'd you
my
go to
property
college?
management. University of Maine in Orono, Maine.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So out to California, just going out for sun and a new life, huh?
Yep, time to get started in my life.
And got in the real estate business.
I did.
And what'd you do in the real estate business?
Started out as bookkeeper for real estate and then went on to property management, which I found was a really good fit for me.
Right. So that's what led you to being in the kind of business you're in today, right?
Yeah, I did office buildings, apartment buildings. I did everything and eventually ended up specializing more in retail.
So what brought you to Kitsap County?
I was ready to move. We were living in the Central Valley in California, and I was ready to move somewhere different, ready to make a change. And we took a weekend trip up here to look at the job opening that the mall had and just fell in love with this area and just realized this is where we wanted to move to. So we picked 2 kids out of high school and brought them up here, put them into CK, and settled on down. And now this is where we're staying. You
know, this community, the Pacific Northwest, a lot of people move here and they never leave.
I understand that.
Yeah, I do too. I'm one of them. I was born in Texas and came up here as an 8th grader. But you know, the winters they're not cold here, but they're cloudy and rainy. And
I've noticed that. Yes.
Yeah. And so what you have to figure out here is how to get out of the area at least once during the winter, so you can kind of break the winter up, you know.
I'm a little tied up through holidays, so it's a little.
But I think it's the water and the mountains that keep us here.
Yeah.
And in Kitsap County, I think we have more shoreline than any other county in the country, or there's some statistic like that. So it's a beautiful place to live.
I recommend it to anybody looking at moving.
Yeah. So I know you must have worked for the Starwood Corporation.
I work for Starwood Retail Partners, yes.
Yeah. And who is Starwood? What are they? What do they do?
So Starwood Retail is an offshoot of Starwood Capital Group. It was created to put together malls just like the Kitsap Mall. And within a couple of years, they went out and bought about 30 malls across the U.S. that they felt were in great locations and underutilized. Kitsap's a perfect example of it. Starwood bought the mall in 2013. And the first thing they did was start revitalizing the tenant mix, expanding some of the footprint of the mall, and we're still moving forward with that even today.
Where else do they buy in malls? Where do they have malls?
Oh, geez. Salinas, California, Solano, California, a couple in the Chicago area. There's Florida. Let me think on it. Willow Bend is down in
Where's
Texas.
their corporate headquarters?
Chicago.
Chicago.
Yeah.
So you work for a big corporation called Starwood that a few years ago purchased the Kitsap Mall. Most of the malls they're purchasing similar to Kitsap Mall, big parking lots and built in the 60s and all that kind of thing. Are they similar to that?
Some of them, yeah. There's a large group that are like that. Kitsap was actually built in the mid-'80s, but so that's standard kind of mall footprint that we know from a suburban area. We've got quite a bit of those. We also have lifestyle centers. We've got the Metreon in downtown San Francisco, which isn't really a mall at all. So they just went and looked at properties, real estate, that had the potential to be better than it was now.
Well, I think they made a good decision in coming to the Kitsap Mall. You're the general manager of the Kitsap Mall. What does the general manager do at the Kitsap Mall? What's your job?
I always hope people ask that because my joke retort is I generally manage, but I'm responsible for the security, the housekeeping, the maintenance, the common area. We've got specialty leasing teams. We've got the small management team in the office. I get to be responsible for all those things. When it works great, it's my team. If it's not working great, it's my fault.
How many people are employed at the Kitsap Mall?
Oh, at any one time, I would say in excess. I'm going to guess and say well in excess of 1,000.
1,000.
Yeah.
So you're a big job center.
It is a very big job center.
Yeah. Now, how many do you employ yourself to run the company?
So in our management office itself, there's only 5 of us. And from there, we have companies that we hire with staff that report to us, but they're actually employed by outside companies to do maintenance, security, housekeeping.
So you contract out a lot of the work that you have to do.
Yeah.
Maintenance and all that kind of security,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. I know you get asked this all the time, but what's the future of retail, especially brick and mortar retail, given the e-commerce challenge or opportunities that are out there? I know in our home, somebody delivers a box of something to us every day, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And my guess is that's true in every home. And and my wife works, as I mentioned to you, for the Nordstrom Corporation and has for a long time. And so I know they're really working hard at creating broadening their experience in their brick and mortar stores. What do you guys think? What are you thinking about the future of brick and mortar retail in our country?
I think brick and mortar will never go away because it serves a purpose. I too buy a lot of stuff off the internet, but I buy stuff I can't get nearby. I think what we're going to see is the change that's inevitable. We're not the same shoppers we were in the 80s. We baby boomers have gotten older. Our kids don't buy as much stuff. Change is good. You have to embrace that. We do want an entertainment value to what we do. We want customer service when we're face to face. As consumers, I think we're standing up and demanding what it is that we want. Now, I'm seeing that in brick and mortar, the stores that are the strongest are the ones that do both, and they do both well.
Yeah.
If you're just internet, there's a growth potential that stops. You just can't get huge. If you're just brick and mortar and you don't offer the internet, you're cutting off a potential avenue. So, I always tell people one of the big things I do is like when I'm buying pants, like most women, I own 800 pairs of black pants.
Right.
I can't get them in a store in my right size, but I can order them through my Macy's and they deliver them. And if I don't like them, I walk it over to Macy's and give them back. And if I keep them on there, I've still bought it from Macy's because they do a great job.
So especially the big retailers, they have to be proficient in e-commerce, right?
They do.
I mean, they have to, if you see a blouse that you like and you get on the internet and you order it, they better be able to find it and get it to you in a day or 2 days or so, if they're going to compete. As you say, they have to have both.
They do,
right?
They do. And they have to be able, you're right, getting it delivery out to people quickly is also a big part.
Do you have any idea what the percentage of e-commerce is?
Well, the statistics still show that 90% of what we purchase, we buy face-to-face.
Oh, 90%.
Now, we're not talking just clothing here, but 90% of everything that we purchase is still face-to-face. And when you start thinking about that, it's very difficult to buy a car on the internet. You can buy groceries on the internet to some degree, but that's growing, but you're likely driving over and still picking them up unless you're having them home delivered for. So yeah, there's still a huge amount of it.
Well, I want to talk about books for a minute.
Oh, one of my favorites.
Mine too. My favorite store is a good bookstore, and I love Barnes & Noble.
Yep.
And, you know, Amazon. But I also know that if I mention a book to my wife, she'll get on the internet, and that book will be at my front door the next day, right? Something like that. So how does Barnes & Noble survive in the next 5 years? How do we make sure that we still have that wonderful bookstore that we all love to go in and sit and browse through and read? And I read in the paper the other day, I think Barnes & Noble's hired a new
They were
president.
sold. No, the
Oh, they were
company
sold.
was sold to a gentleman who's done an excellent job of turning
that's
another
right.
book chain around. Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. But the other big statistic that's coming out for Barnes & Noble is that we as a consumer are starting to buy more hardcover books. In other words, we really all went to our Kindle. I have a Kindle. I do.
Yeah.
And went crazy on it with ebooks, and now we're starting to bounce a little bit out the other way.
Ah.
And I can see that. I love the feel of a book in my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
plus you can, I'm a hardcover book guy, and we've got a big library at my house, and I love reading books, and my wife's at Kindle. She, she reads that Kindle in the evening. It helps her go to sleep, that sort of thing. So we're good consumers, but so you still think that there's going to be something like a bookstore there's still going to be a market for that.
Oh, absolutely. People aren't going to stop reading, and people love to wander into a bookstore. And as someone who also purchases ebooks online, it's not the same. You can look through and read the little comments on it. It is not the same as walking down the aisles of Barnes & Noble and picking a book up and looking at it and talking to the woman standing next to you about an author. And
right.
It's a one-on-one. It's the experience.
Or
of
having
being
a
a
lecture
shopper.
series in the bookstore.
Oh yeah.
I worked in downtown Seattle for a long time in Pioneer Square, and we had a wonderful old bookstore there. I'm trying to think of the name of it now. But it would, they had a little restaurant down below, and they had almost weekly, they had authors come in and give lectures, and it was just a culturally wonderful experience.
And that is something Barnes still does to this day.
Yeah. I just think it's so important. So I'm rooting for our local Barnes & Noble bookstore, and I think it's great. So I'm fascinated by Kitsap Mall and by the future of Kitsap Mall. What are changes you see coming to the mall, and how do you attract new customers? How do you market Kitsap Mall?
So Kitsap is rather unique in that we basically are an island. You have to make an effort to go shop somewhere else. You take a ferry, you drive across a bridge, you have to leave. And so one of the concepts that Starwood looked at when they bought it was, let's put the tenants up at Kitsap Mall that resonate with the people of Kitsap so that they don't feel like they have to go drive somewhere else to go shop. And we did that in the first couple of years in a very large way. We eliminated some tenants that just, as good a names as they weren't that popular here. And we put in H&M, we've put in Dick's Sporting Goods, we've added all these restaurants.
Oh, that Dick's Sporting Goods store is amazing.
It's fantastic, yeah.
That is amazing.
And the food uses that we've put in are a big part, because entertainment and food are a huge part of what has been just a retail environment before. That people come to the mall to have lunch, and they stay to
Right.
run in and grab something else.
I know I mentioned my wife works for the Nordstrom Corporation, and they're opening a big new store in New York, in
Yes.
Manhattan.
Very big.
In the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
They've already opened a new men's store down there. This store they're opening is women's, and it's 7 floors. But they have 2 of the best known chefs in the world
Food.
opening restaurants.
Yeah.
And I have a friend who was at the men's store that they opened that called me by phone. He said, Cary, I'm sitting in the Nordstrom bar here, and it's one of the best bars I've ever been in, and their food is amazing. So here's a retail, department store that's big time into the food business and the restaurant business.
So that's full circle. When I was a child growing up on the East Coast, one of the real treats was to go, and I don't remember if it was B. Altman or one of the other chains that doesn't exist anymore, was to go there and have a nice little dress-up lunch with my mom. I remember that. So it's interesting that all these years later, we're going back to our department stores to go and have food again.
Yeah. So, you know, speaking of Nordstrom, I talked to my wife a while back about could we ever get a Nordstrom rack here? And so she actually nosed around a little bit about that. And we were told, I think we were told at the time our population wasn't quite big enough to support that. But you think there's a possibility maybe someday that could happen?
You know, we'll never give up trying. So if Nordstrom's ever interested, they know the door's open for Kitsap. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I just think Silverdale or Kitsap would be a perfect place for a Nordstrom rack.
Yeah. You know, one of the other things you asked how we get people back into the mall.
Yeah.
One of the programs that we started.
How do you market the mall?
So we have this program that we started about a year ago. We've already gotten international acclaim for it as Starwood Retail, and it's called Live 360. And
Live 360?
Live 360, and that
Okay.
is not our area code nor the days in the year. It is 360 degrees. The idea that we're supposed to live our lives in the fullest we can. Now, the number one thing about a shopping center like Kitsap Mall is the real estate portion. We have a roof, we have conditioned space, and we have free parking, which means it's an easy place to gather in. So one of the program's aspects is
How many parking spots do you have?
3,667 or
Wow.
so. Yeah,
You have
lots,
3,000 parking spaces.
yeah, almost 4,000 parking spaces. But so
That's unheard of.
well, not when they built malls like this.
No, not
that was
when they built
standard
malls,
back
yeah.
then. Yeah, unnecessary now, but standard back then.
Right.
But in our Live 360, we allow people in the community to host their programs. Like we do free yoga classes every 2 weeks that we actually host on those. We have people that have come in and have financial literacy classes. We have meetings that are held on an ongoing basis every week. That this is a location for these
And you
people to be able
provide
to
space
gather.
for that?
We provide space. Someone else runs it. Every Monday afternoon,
So you have kind of a community center within
that's
the mall?
exactly it. We have several rooms that we use as community room. One we've actually built out to be a nice small conference room setup.
I think that's a great idea. You know, you've got all that parking, you're centrally located. Why wouldn't that be a great, I've been to meetings at the mall.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, on Monday afternoon, you should come and listen to the Washington State Fiddlers Association because they meet and practice in a space right in front of Kohl's. And it's magical.
Is it?
These people are really good.
Well, if it was country western, I might come, but
They'll probably play whatever you ask them
I'm not
to.
sure about fiddler. So you have 3,000 parking stalls that aren't all necessarily needed most of the time for your retail business. So the idea is to offer up the mall. You still call them malls?
Yeah, yeah. There's no name change in the process right now.
Okay. To offer up the mall as a kind of a community gathering place.
Yes.
And you see that expanding that service?
It's been a natural fit for Kitsap, so absolutely.
Yeah.
It's something that's working well in all our malls across the U.S., and it's really working well for us here.
I think it's great. Do you provide daycare at all?
We don't. We have looked into that possibility of someone setting up a daycare situation. We hadn't had anyone yet that was ready to move forward, though.
Well, one thing I notice, if I'm going to a meeting in Silverdale or something and I haven't gotten my exercise in, I'll go to the mall before, and you open the doors before.
We do.
I don't know what time you open the doors, but it's early, and there's a lot of walkers in
Yes,
there.
yeah.
And then I was in there one day, and there were a lot of young mothers in there with their children, pushing them in baby carts around the mall.
That's the Fit for Mom class, and it's 3 days a week. And when the weather's beautiful, they meet outside, and when the weather's less than stellar, they meet inside. And the mall rings with just fun stuff for an hour.
So do
as
you
they march
organize
around.
that yourself?
No, that's actually an outside organization.
Oh, is it?
They also have a Fit for Babies. They have a setup for women who are expecting as well as postpartum.
Yeah.
All three groups meet at the mall.
I think the walking thing at the mall, because you're indoors and you have to be out in the rain, and it's a nice service. And a lot of people I see are seniors that are there, and I'm sure you have faithful people that are there all the time.
Oh yeah, we have an excellent, good, strong group of
And
people.
I've
there.
walked the mall,
Yeah.
and you can, I think that if I time it, because always time I walk, I think it takes me about 12 minutes to walk the whole inside of the thing or something like that.
My understanding, it's about 0.78 of a mile if you stay on the dark tiles.
Yeah.
You walk the
It's
exterior.
it's 0.78.
Yeah, that's what I've been told. I've never measured it. That's just what I've been
Yeah.
told. So.
Well, you know, if you think about the need for us taking care of ourselves and the fact that you have this huge facility that's covered in the winter, and it offers these opportunities. I think that's great.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. The mall is called Kitsap Mall, but it's really, it's Silverdale. It's located in what we call Silverdale, which is unincorporated Kitsap County, but it's the retail center because of the mall. We're seeing a lot of growth in Kitsap County right now. I mean, I think in the next 20 years, we might come close to doubling our population in the state. Some people think that's a little aggressive, but I don't think so. What do you see as the future of the Silverdale community? What's your vision of what's going to happen in Silverdale? Will more people be living downtown? I guess if there's a downtown in Silverdale, it's near the mall or around the mall, right? What do you think the future of Silverdale is?
Well, Silverdale itself is a fairly small number of people in it. 16, 17,000, is that about right?
In the incorporated Silverdale?
Unincorporated Silverdale.
Yeah.
So when I look at what is happening on the peninsula, I always look at all of Kitsap Peninsula. I agree with you, we are in for a large growth. I was at the Puget Sound Regional Council piece that they put on at the county seat the other day, and they're saying another 100,000 people on this peninsula by 2050. We have a lot of protected land. We have some land left to build.
So we have about 250,000 people that live in Kitsap County now. Within 20 years, we'll have 400,000 people living in Kitsap County.
Yeah, and I see things getting taller because I think we just can't spread out. We're not all going to fit, so we're going to have to go up.
I'm a big believer in urban areas of creating height.
Yeah.
And you can put a lot more people in that building, say 300 that go up and take this much room, or you can spread them out and sprawl them out, which requires a lot more infrastructure and park, all kinds of things. Yeah. So I think for Silverdale, and I've always thought this, that additional height opportunities would be perfect, where you put some apartment houses downtown and you got more people living. And if you could make it more walkable and more pedestrian, then I think it could become quite a nice community in terms of an urban community.
Yeah, and they did that first step by what they're doing coming in from Newberry, where we now have sidewalks coming in where there weren't sidewalks before.
Right. Plant more trees.
Yeah.
Make it not so auto-centric. So I just think Silverdale's got a lot of potential to become an urban center in Kitsap County, and I hope we continue to work at that.
Right, and having the hospital there makes it a natural base now too.
Yeah, how's the hospital going to impact you?
I think our lunch trade will grow.
Yeah.
We'll have a lot more people working close by. It's nothing but a benefit to the retail and the restaurants in Silverdale.
Yeah. So it's
and the hotels.
And the hotel, right. Yeah. One thing about malls that I notice, I spend a lot of time in Seattle, so I'm familiar with the University Village. I don't know if you've been to the University Village.
Only a couple times, yeah.
Yeah. But malls, the old malls built in the 70s and 80s and 60s were internally centric, right? I mean, all the stores face inside the mall. And even my years in Bellevue at the Bellevue Square, they've started to turn some of that retail out toward the street. Do you see something like that happening at Silverdale?
We've already done it.
Oh, have you?
When Starwood bought the mall in 2013, that's exactly what we looked like. It was bunkers looking from the outside, and all the stores opened in. And as we've added all the restaurants and the Dick's Sporting Goods,
restaurants,
all of them face out, so that it's a far more attractive and enticing thing to see as you're driving in than it used to be.
Yes.
And that's the other side of that, is you also want them to be able to open into the mall so that people have the ability to park, come into their store, but then if they're going further into the mall, it's the easy access. They don't have to go back out and come in a main door. So that's how all of what we've set up is done.
Yeah. I think that's really important.
It is. The bunker look that was the 80s. They're not coming back.
Yeah. And I read the New York Times business section, and I read about that Macy's is struggling, and I guess Sears is struggling. And I'm not predicting this, but if you were to lose one of those big, they call them anchors in your business, and I'm sure you're thinking about this because it's always possible, how could you replace that, or what would be the plan to replace those big Sears or Macy's if they were to leave or close?
So Sears owned their own building and land on there, and it was announced just within this last 10 days or so that they are closing, and they have.
So is that official?
Yeah, they've got their redevelopment already set up. The building has been sold to an outside owner who's re-tenanting, and we're sorry to see Sears go. It's a part of all our youth and our lives, but we're very excited about the tenants that will be coming in, which, no, I can't announce them. They're not mine to announce.
I know. But that's exciting. So
Yes,
Sears is Sears kind of closing down around the country?
He's spinning off an awful lot of the properties, and some he'll do leasebacks on, and some they'll sell and re-tenant. And Tacoma Mall, they knocked it down on theirs. It'll be different at every single property.
It's exciting news that you have a new tenant. You're not going to have to board up the facility and that sort of thing. That's great.
Yeah.
I hate to bring this up, but I need to bring it up. We've had some mall shootings, and we have, we've become a country where there's, in my opinion, way too many guns out there. But so we just had this terrible thing in El Paso.
Yeah.
How do you guys not plan for it, but I mean, you must think about it, and you have a strategy around that sort of thing.
We actually do have to plan. We drill for it. You never know what could go wrong. You don't know if it's going to be an earthquake. You don't know if it's going to be, someone coming in from outside or somebody that's already in the mall. So we plan and drill for all of them. We work closely with the Sheriff's Department and every other entity that will come and join with us on it. But it is just something that everybody keeps their eyes and ears open.
Well, every building, not just malls,
no,
but
it's
every
not.
building has to be prepared.
Yeah.
It has to, think about it before it happens, if it does ever happen. God hope it doesn't happen, but we live in a different time nowadays. Got a couple, just one other question. We're running out of time, but do you have some kind of favorite stores at the mall that a lot of people don't know about or think about that you think are really cool?
Is this like asking me which one of my children are my favorite?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. There's several really cool cutting edge things that I find that people don't know enough about. There's a Disney store inside the JCPenney on the second floor.
Okay.
And it is, I think, not well enough known. People will tell me, I wish you had a Disney store, and we'll go, second floor, JCPenney, come on up. Fuego is a chain that is really a lot of fun to get in there, very innovative and interesting, and you get a lot of cute t-shirts. The mountains are calling and I must go, for those of us who like to hike. That's always fun. We also have a unique local bazaar, which is a place for local craftsmen and artisans to showcase. So it's kind of Etsy, but here in a brick and mortar. That's a great place to go in because it changes. You have different people. It's more of a consignment setup, so people are selling their soaps or their hand-knitted socks or whatever in there. That's always a lot of fun. But then we go food juices, and I don't want to miss anybody. I love all my stores, but those are excellent choices to go check out.
And you're always in the business of looking for new
Always.
ideas and new tenants and new people to bring in the mall, right?
Oh yes, absolutely. We spend a lot of time watching what's going on in the U.S. and internationally.
What days is the mall closed?
Right now, 2 days a year has been the tradition: Easter and Christmas.
Easter and Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, I've appreciated it. Is there anything I haven't asked you, Erin, that you want to make sure you get to say?
I think the Live 360 program, to everybody out in the audience, this is great. You have something that you're passionate about, something you want to teach. You have marionettes and you'd like to put on a class. You have a financial literacy, anything like that. Call us up at the mall because we'd love to host you. It's a great place to do it. We'll actually help push it on our social media too.
Well, it's been great talking to you. I hope people learn more about the Kitsap Mall today, and I'm glad you're there running the Kitsap Mall and being the leader for the Kitsap Mall, because you are that by just the nature of its job makes you a leader in our community. So thank you.
Thank you. I'm glad to be there.
Yeah.